Hello and welcome back to MCO NXT. Today with a gameplay video and a tech review of this game, which is Fast Fusion on the Nintendo Switch 2. So far on this channel I've really looked a lot at accessories, some gameplay, but we're now gonna get into more professional reviews. That's what we're really here for, and talks about graphics, tech, which is important, and digital culture. That's what this channel is about. So we're not just talking about frame rates and graphics, but also how these things actually feel to play. Kind of the stuff that sticks with you. And Fast Fusion is something that caught my eye. It is fast and flashy, and it's made by a small German studio that somehow pushed or is pushing this new hardware, the Switch 2, to its limits. And yeah, I really like that this is part of a launch lineup for a console. Because the tech is quite interesting. But, you know, is it just a nice looking racer, or does it actually bring something new? We want to talk a little bit about that today in a very casual way. So in this video, what we're going to do, we're going to break it down a bit. First, we'll talk tech, how it performs, what's going on under the hood. Yeah. Then we will get into gameplay and whether it's actually fun to play. And at the end, I'll give you my full take. So who's this game for, and whether I think it's actually worth picking up right now. Let's get into it. So let's talk about the tech behind Fast Fusion first, because even if you're not super into graphic settings and performance numbers, what Shin'en have done here is quite wild. It's quite impressive. First of all, the game runs at 60 frames per second, quite stable, pretty much the whole time. That means everything feels very smooth, and responsive, which is exactly what you want in a futuristic racer. For those who don't track frame rates, 60 FPS just means that the game refreshes 60 times per second, making it feel very fluid, snappy, less stutter, and more control, which is important like when you're dealing with a performance racer, right? Now, Shin'en isn't, so the developer, they're not using some big name engine like Unreal or Unity, you might know those. They built their own engine from scratch, and that gives them total control over how the game looks and runs. It's a little bit like building your own car instead of using a rental. More work, for sure, but also way more flexibility, which I think, you know, which I think is represented by how it looks. But this is where it's really getting interesting, because even though the game lets you select resolutions like 1080p, 1440p, or even 4K, it's not actually rendering at those resolutions. Instead, it's using something that is called DLSS. That's an AI-based upscaling technique from NVIDIA. And what it basically does is it renders the game at a low resolution to save power, and then use machine learning to make it look higher resolution. It's quite smart. The catch is, however, in slower games it works really well, but Fast Fusion is obviously insanely fast, so when you're boosting through the track, as you'll probably see on the screen, switching lanes and hitting jump pads, the AI just can't keep up perfectly, but it still does, I think, a pretty good job. But the result is that you get this kind of fuzzy, pixelated image that looks sharp when you're standing still, but a little bit messy when you move. I mean, I think this really is only becoming obvious when you really, let's say, very much focused on the graphics, yeah. But it still does a really good job, I think. But let me put it this way. Imagine you're watching a fast-paced action scene on YouTube at 480p. Yeah, so pretty low resolution. You can follow what's going on, but it's just not crisp. And that's kind of what happens here, because it kind of, as I said, it kind of is that lower resolution, and it kind of, it gives you that impression that it's higher resolution, okay? But sometimes it kind of breaks down, that AI. So, nevertheless, they seem to know that, Shin'en, because as far as I have seen, they are planning to add something that's called a pure mode. That's basically an option that skips the AI magic and instead uses something called dynamic resolution scaling, which means the game will just lower or raise the resolution depending on how much is happening on screen. It's a bit more raw, but usually more consistent when things get intense. Now, for most people, it won't really matter, honestly. So, but to give you an analogy, it's a bit like if you have a car automatically shifting gears based on how hard you press the gas. It's bit less fancy, but also a bit more predictable with that patch they want to introduce. Now, but then let's talk about something else, which is the lighting system, which is probably one of the most impressive things under the hood here. They've designed a hybrid model that combines baked lighting, that's pre-rendered light data, with real-time effects. That makes the world feel alive without burning through system resources, which is quite important when you're dealing with a console like the Switch 2, which is good tech, but it's not like high-end, right? So the whole lighting per track only takes about 5 to 15 megabytes, which is tiny. That's why the full game is quite small. I was impressed how quickly it was downloaded. It's, I think, around 3 to 4 gigabytes, so super compact compared to most titles. They've also added what is called volumetric fog, which gives the world that hazy, glowing atmosphere, like light scattering through a misty canyon. And even that runs efficiently, because they offloaded most of the calculations for that onto the GPU. So just for a little bit of context, the GPU is like the game's graphics brain. Keeping the CPU free means that the rest of the game, like the physics, the sound, the input, keeps running smoothly too. Now, what is impressive is that these effects hold up even in 4-player split screen. The image gets a little bit more compressed there, however. Please keep that in mind. But the frame rate holds, which I said in the beginning, is pretty much consistent as far as I could see. Now you can play in the so-called ultra quality mode. That's the 30 FPS option, and you get slightly better resolution, but I wouldn't personally recommend it because it feels a little bit more, I don't know, you know, it's just not the same. It is a little bit less speedy, and it loses a little bit of flow. So I would keep it at 60. So bottom line, from a tech point of view, Fast Fusion, in my view, is an incredibly optimized game for the Switch 2. The trade-off is that visually it can sometimes feel like the hardware is gasping to keep up. Still, when you realize how tiny the developer team is and how much they squeezed out of this machine for a launch title, it is impressive. So quite positively impressed by that. And yeah, honestly, I mean, this is kind of what I love seeing at launch. Not just pushing buttons basically, but actually pushing the boundaries a bit. So now let's also talk about my impression on how it actually plays, because all the tech in the world doesn't matter if the game isn't fun, right? So here's the thing. It's a fast game, like really fast. I remember many years ago, it was one of my birthdays, just, well, I don't know, like 15 years? No, not 15 years. I can't remember when it was. Way back. One of the, yeah, more than 15 for sure. One of the birthday gifts I had received, I was kind of a teenager, I think, was Wipeout 64. Wipeout 64, and it kind of felt similar. It felt similar, like the feeling was similar. It's not the same game, but some people out there have compared this game to Wipeout. And yeah, I can see why. So I love the speed, and it's kind of the same feel. It's not F-Zero. It's kind of different, but really good. And it's got this unique vibe. So I love just to, you know, have a game that you can just put into the console and just start playing without any long intros, and just know what you're doing, basically. But it's a fast game. And the moment you hit that first boost pad, it feels like you're getting launched down a roller coaster a little bit. And yeah, it feels controllable. I don't think it has ever felt uncontrollable, and that's the magic. So the basic mechanics, in my view, are simple on the surface, because you race, you boost, like everybody can just pick up a controller and play. You switch the colors. So the color switching is basically the core of the game. Blue for blue boost pads and orange for the orange ones. And if you mismatch, then you slow down. So there's this contrast, or let's say constant rhythm of timing and switching, especially at high speeds. That's kind of yeah. Some of you might remember it's like Ikaruga, if you remember that color swapping shooter, but obviously here in racing form. And then there's a jump mechanic in the game as well, which is new in Fast Fusion. At first I thought a little bit like, jumping in a racer, bit weird, but actually it adds a whole new layer, and I see it works well. You can use it to cut corners, hit hidden boost pads, or grab collectibles mid-air. But if you mess it up, then you go flying off track or slam into a wall. Happened a lot of times, but it's fun because you get better at it. So there's the risk and reward kind of mechanic here, that dynamic that keeps it interesting. What I really like is how responsive everything feels after several hours of playing. I played with a Pro controller, and the handling is super tight. So you can lean into corners with the triggers, you can correct mid-air with slight stick input, and it just feels right. It's kind of arcade style, but with a bit more depth than you would expect from a simple arcade racer. There's also a fusion system where you can combine different vehicles to create your own custom rides. So you don't get everything unlocked from the start. You've got to earn in-game currency, which keeps it motivating, by racing and doing well. But once you start fusing, it gets addictive. You can tweak speed, handling, boost capacity, and more. So it looks simple in the beginning, but it gets quite complex. So it's kind of like building your own loadout. So now let's talk a little bit about the content. You get 12 tracks, and it's split into 4 leagues. That's not a massive amount, but each track is really well designed. One's, I think, got tornadoes, another one has massive robots stomping around. You get rain stages, water, nighttime. It definitely has variety, and they also said, so the developer team said that more content is coming, which is really, really good. But it's already solid. And then you get different modes. So you get the standard the standard championships, time trials, and there's also a superhero mode where your boost meter is also your health bar, which is a nice twist. So you can also play local multiplayer, split screen works great, even with 4 players. And even then the 60 FPS, as far as I could see, holds up pretty well. There's also game share, where other players, or where one player streams to another Switch. So again, it's not perfect, the quality drops a bit, but it does work. And yeah, I mean, one more thing I noticed, so the sense of flow in this game is just amazing. So when you... It felt a little bit, it really felt addictive to me. I'm not someone who has too much time diving really deep into games, but I haven't had it for a long time that, you know, as a child, it often happened. Like, you have a new game, you go to bed, and you want to, you know, wake up the next morning and you want to continue to play. And for a very long time, this is the first time I've actually felt that with a game. And you know, it's not the deepest game. It's not the one with the fanciest graphics or the fanciest mechanic, but it just works, and that kind of appealed to me. So I really like it. And again, it's the flow is amazing. So when you nail a clean lap, color switches on point, and the boost times, you timed your boosts perfectly, and then you have another smooth jump. It just feels incredible, like you're just surfing through the track, and it's like art a little bit. And then, yeah, you crash into a wall 2 seconds later and it humbles you. But that loop is super satisfying. And the only downside, in my view, gameplay-wise, is that some players might find it a bit light on content at first, and you do need to grind a little to unlock stuff. Not with real money, but just like in-game racing. But still, it's there. And personally, I didn't mind it, because the core gameplay loop is really, really fun. So yeah, I mean, as a launch title, especially for a smaller studio, this is tight. It's fast, challenging, and it actually rewards skill as well. It's definitely not just a clone of, I don't know, Wipeout or even a Mario Kart clone. So it isn't just a good-looking launch title. In my view, it's a bit of a statement there. It's a small studio showing what's possible when you know how to work with hardware, push the limits, and still make something that just is plain fun to play. Is it perfect? No. The image quality in motion can be rough, and yeah, the content at launch isn't massive, but honestly, what is here works. The gameplay feels tight, the performance is solid, and the whole experience is way more polished than you would expect from a, I think it's like a 15 British pound title, or like a 17 euro title, $20. Amazing, yeah. especially if you consider like an $80 for Mario Kart. And it's not just about the game itself, it's what it represents. Yeah, a team, and that's again where you know, I love to talk about this stuff, because this channel is also about digital culture and kind of the meaning behind things. So, you know, we have a team here that knows what they are doing, an eraser that respects your time, and a launch title that isn't just here to fill space. It's actually worth playing. And if you're into fast-paced, skill-based arcade races, or if you just want to see what the Switch 2 can really do when a dev team goes all in, then Fast Fusion is 100% worth checking out. For me personally, this is, if I had to give you a number, it's probably like a strong 8.5 out of 10. And depending on how that upcoming patch improves the visuals, it might even creep up to a 9, or maybe even, you know, new content coming out. Yeah, but pretty good. It's fun, and it's fast, and it's made with care. You feel it. What more do you want from a launch game? So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure you stick around here on MCO NXT. Make sure you subscribe. We've got more reviews, tech deep dives, comparisons, and all the digital culture that actually matters. See you in the next one. Thank you.